So I auditioned for One Republic a long time ago. Ryan Tedder, lead singer, calls me up and he goes, Miley, like, I wanted to call you personally. You did such a good job. We loved you. Everyone in the band loves you. Like, I got along with, we were broing down, hanging out, having beers after the auditions and stuff. Like, and he goes, but I'm just going to shoot you straight. You're basically a BMW, AMG, Mercedes. We need a Honda Accord. And it was like the best compliment, and it's just a lesson for like everybody. You could be the best drummer on planet Earth, man, and you might not get the gig.
Yeah, so this is Mike. He is on tour. He is actually in Ohio right now at his hotel room, and he so kindly took some time out of the day to talk to us and chat on drums. And so if you have never been on a guest artist call, then this one will be a lot of fun. Grant is out. He's sick right now, so I will be managing the call. And as all of you know, that's a little unusual for me. So if you've got a question, this is the whole reason that we do these calls. We do guest artists once a month, and we had Demi Lovato's drummer last month. And like, we do these because I do everything. What would my 14-year-old self think was really, really cool? And I would think it was really, really cool if I could talk to the drummers in the bands that I listened to, that I saw on tour, that were out there, doing the thing. Even if you never want to play in front of people, it's still just really fun. So that's why we do these calls, is so that my 14-year-old self can be satisfied. So nice. What's up, Mike? How are you, man?
I'm great, man. We just arrived. We drove through an ice storm.
Yeah. Did you hit that ice storm? Where were y'all coming from? Because we're heading to Nebraska and Iowa tonight to play with Jinx. Go to Jinx, and we I think we're gonna miss the bulk of it, but we are gonna hit some of it.
We left Kalamazoo last night, and we actually packed up. We're opening for Whiskey Myers, so we were done early, and so we packed up the trailer and everything. We got out of there before 10 p.m. and because the temperature was going to be dropping in Ohio, but it was getting way more in Michigan, and we were going to sleep and then leave in the morning. Anyway, we drove through in warmer temperatures, I should say. So it was slushy, but there's trees falling in the road and power lines down. Like the bus ran over a power line at one point. So it's winter touring is always fun. So
I'll never know why people plan tours out west in the winter, up north and out west. I don't know. We were in Colorado in January, and we had a rookie bus driver. He was new, and he should have been doing co-drives instead of being by himself. Anyway, he wrecked the bus with us in it. So it was a lot of fun, and sliding backwards in a bus with a trailer is an experience I'd prefer not to have anymore. So.
Ooh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Well, cool, man. So this is real relaxed. As I'll say again, if you got a question, put it in the chat. Y'all feel free to talk and chat. I'll try to keep up with that. Grant is out, and he usually helps manage these. Raise your hand. I would love for you to talk to Mike. He's just like the rest of us, a complete nerd. And so we're going to spend an hour, 2 hours nerding out about drums and all things percussion related.
And just a plug for you, man. I discovered your page, and for all your followers that are listening, I'm a professional working drummer, record deal, touring the world, right? And so I still take lessons with various drummers. Maybe we can get into some of that, but I came across your page because I'm always looking for the more efficient way to do a paradiddle, or applying a paradiddle to the kit, or your Jeff Porcaro breakdown is money. I told you about that, but and so there's, we have these resources on the internet that are just, and you've taken the you've taken the helm, dude, and you have a great page, and so I've been following you for a long time. So it's crazy for me to actually be here. So I just want to thank everybody. First off, get some good vibes flowing here.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for that. So do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm almost 50.
Okay. So,
yeah.
So people, because I'm like, look, when I was coming up, like you just didn't have these resources. I had to drive 30 minutes to my drum teacher, pay him $50 a week. I had to subscribe to Modern Drummer for $25, $30 a month, unless I got the yearly special. Unless I could get, if I could catch the yearly special, get that 12 month subscription. Yeah, I mean, I was out in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi, and it's just amazing to me the resources that are available, and then the connectivity that we can all do. I mean, the fact that we can do this while you're on tour, and I'm in Nashville, and you're in Ohio, and everybody else is around the world. It blows my mind that we're able to do this. So I get just as excited about these as everyone else does. All right, so I got a question, because you said you still take lessons. So I still do that. And I still geek out from being able to. So when COVID happened, a lot of players came off the road, players that you wouldn't be able to get lessons from usually, because they tour. That's what they do. And so I was able to snag a lesson with Klaus Hessler, who's amazing. So amazing clinician and technician. And then Dave King from the Bad Plus. I was able to snag a lesson from Dave, and then he came on as a guest artist, and so I had a complete geek out moment. So I'm glad to hear that you. Let's start there, and then we'll get into the history and how you got into drumming and all that stuff. But so when you're looking for a lesson, who are the cats that you're kind of looking to, and what are you looking to get out of a lesson at this point?
Well, just to go back a few years, Rival Sons were kind of coming up, and inching our way up into the music, vernacular. We're not a household name yet, but we were about to tour with Black Sabbath and for a year as their opening act for their final tour. And it was just, I'm like, people are writing about me, comparing me to John Bonham and shit. So I'm like, sorry, can I cuss?
Yeah, no one cares. It's fine.
I'm pretty clean. I'm usually pretty clean, but
it's totally fine.
I mean, you're being compared to some of the most legendary people in the world, and so as somebody with a music degree and a background, and knowing that more efficient technique can get you further. I had fallen into some bad habits. I was pulling muscles in my shoulders. I had tennis elbow in both elbows, tendonitis in my wrist. I was constantly on tour with pain, and I mean, there was one tour I tore a teres minor in my right shoulder. I couldn't even dry off in the shower, my left side. It hurt so bad. Imagine trying to play, a tour. Anyway, so I started studying with Dave Elitch, and I went literally ground floor, single strokes at 40 on the metronome, double strokes at 40, da, 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 bounce. Doing the bounce and getting out of your own way, his whole thing. And then during COVID, I started studying with Justin Scott. He's a big Instagrammer. A lot of people are following him. I'll go to Justin Scott's thing, and Ray Luzier from Korn is liking the post, and he's just chops guy, just insane. I took a few lessons with him, and then Chris Coleman. Chris Coleman's one of the greatest drummers on planet Earth, in my opinion. Got a few lessons with him. So COVID was great because Rival Sons was making our record, so we were off the road, and then meanwhile I'm getting drum lessons. So that's a little nutshell. I was the
same, man. I saw all these cats that coming off the road. They're like, well, I don't have anything else to do, so I'm teaching. I'm like, yeah. I'm booking all these lessons. I'm like, sign me up,
Yeah, I taught too. I had 40 students during that whole first 6 months of COVID. I was busy. My wife, we had the everything set up in the garage with the cameras, and I got it all set up. And now I have that inspired me to more set up my studio in the house, where I have panels in the back. You have those fancy wood panels behind you. It looks great on camera, and and it sounds good too. So when I'm recording, it's good to have all that nice wood. So mine's not as nice as yours. I like yours better.
Well, it's okay. The secret to this was we took a torch and burned it, and it brings out the grain of the wood. And the torch is $50 on Amazon, just get you a propane tank, and don't have a beer and do that. or do, and then and take the torch out, and that's what we did for that. So it's interesting you talked about technique and having to retrain yourself, because that's when I'm grabbing my forearm, because when we went out in Colorado, we played an outdoors. It was a Texas. Kind of the red dirt scene. They had a festival out in Colorado where I didn't get it. You could ski and then also watch music. It was a strange thing
Sounds
for
fun.
me, but we were one of the only bands that wasn't from Texas. And we had a show that was it was 11 degrees outside, and the heaters on stage stopped, and I didn't warm up enough. And I pulled something here. So I'm still nursing it. But that's what made me redo my technique. Because even when you're playing with good technique, you can still pull something, and it was probably 9 years ago, and I studied under Dr. John Wooten, Henry Cobb. Like, I studied under some cats that have very good technique, and I was 15 and I didn't listen, so I got bad habits, and but I had to go back and redo it because of injuries. Tennis elbow, golfer's elbow. I thought I was gonna have to have surgery, and so he mentioned a name, Dave Elich. If you don't know who he is, fantastic player. I don't know Dave, but I have seen some of the things he's posted. I haven't gone through any of his material, but he is a fantastic teacher and is all about getting out of your own way when you're playing, which is exactly what I'm about. We gotta let the body do what the body does and kind of fall in line with that. So definitely, yep, exactly. So definitely go check out Dave and everything. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to riff on that, technique is your means through which you are going to express yourself as a rhythmic artist, And so if you can't execute what you're feeling or hearing in your mind, or, whatever, it makes so much sense. Like, it sounds like a no-brainer, but that so many guys don't make that investment, and it is an investment. I remember in college, my dad he paid for my tuition and then gave me money for books. And I would and then I had a job. I was playing a blues band and stuff. And I would take all my money, my extra money that I wasn't spending on school, and I would get lessons. I'd buy my own lessons. And because I knew that was important. And I started with Chuck Flores, Chuck Silverman, Murray Spivak. Like, I was reinvesting back into myself. And
yeah. I was the same way. I always have taken lessons and sought lessons and tried to better myself with playing. You can do it by yourself, but teachers will get you there a little quicker and without as many bumps in the road and injuries. Yeah. So when did you start playing?
When I was 4, I remember learning the Billie Jean beat. And so just basic 1 and 3, 2 and 4, 8 notes. Man, on the hi-hat.
You started way before me. I'm somewhat jealous.
Well, my dad was a guitar player, and he was listening to like Steely Dan and Toto and Ricky Lee Jones, Jeff Porcaro and Lukather and like Boz Scaggs. It was like the Toto band, and he was into who was playing on what records, and of course, Drummers of Steely Dan is a whole legacy in and of itself. And learning who's on, David Sanborn's on sax, Larry Carlton on guitar, and like Paul Jackson Jr. And growing up as a kid, hearing these names and hearing that like stylized execution of musicianship, man, that the 70s, that 70s kind of yacht rock. It's one of my favorite genres. I will go to yacht rock on satellite radio, man. Like, first and foremost, I love it. I love it. Yeah,
the drummers are incredible in that genre. Incredible.
So as a kid, like, I'm hearing Asia, when I'm like a baby, and wanting to do that, and not even realizing it's a Wayne Shorter sax solo. That whole thing is under a sax solo, but I've always heard it as a drum solo, or maybe Wayne Shorter's accompanying Steve Gadd in his solo. I don't know what they called it, but Steve Gadd did that in like one take, dude. So like hearing that stuff and knowing that the bar was up here, it always made me want to shoot past my whatever. If I was here, I wanted to be here, and now I'm here and I want to be,
Right.
even more. Just never settle for less.
Now, how did you wind up with? Were you a founding member of Rival Sons?
Yeah.
Okay.
I started Rival Sons with Scott. Scott was kind of looking to put together a band. He kind of already had a band put together, and I joined up with him, and we went through a couple amalgamations until we finally landed in 2009, releasing our first thing with Jay Buchanan on vocals and 4-piece band. Bass guitar, drums, and a lead singer. I mean, we all did backup vocals, and did that. I don't know. That's the kind of the formula of like Zeppelin and the Who, and so that British Invasion music is like some of my favorite music of all time. I love the Who, I love the Stones, the Beatles, Zeppelin, Cream, Jimi Hendrix, and so there's those 6 bands. Jimi Hendrix was American, but he broke in the UK and Europe. So
last year I got to do it was a British Invasion review type of a show that they were putting together, a couple rehearsals, and then we did a couple nights of shows, and it was all that stuff, man. It was so fun to go back through that.
I'm born on the same day as Keith Moon, and I've always had a kinship with that sparkling, youthful, adolescent angst energy of the Who. I just love that Keith Moon he just can't settle down, and he sounds like a 5-year-old kid that was given sticks and a little bit of ability.
Yeah, exactly. And go with it.
That's what drumming to me, the spirit of the drums is Keith Moon, is like, and I'm not talking about throwing TVs out of windows and driving Bentleys into a swimming pool. I'm talking about music and just that sparkling creativity. If you listen to the Who, My Generation, their first album, every drummer here listening right now, download it, put it on Spotify, get the deluxe version if you can. It's got all the B-sides. They're covering James Brown, Motown, and then their original songs are unbelievably played, and the drums are way up in the mix because Pete Townsend hadn't discovered distortion yet. So it's all like pretty clean guitar, and then Entwistle's like playing with a pick, super pointy bass tone. So all of the drum frequencies are just like, and it's Keith Moon at 17, 18 years old, man. And there's no rock and roll album like it. And it's one of my faves.
It's like going back and listen to those cats when they're so young, like going back and listening to early Miles Davis with Tony on it and realizing Tony was like 17, and it makes you pretty angry. It's like, come on, man. You didn't have to go do that.
Learned everything. He learned every Miles Davis album. He learned every drum part on all that stuff and came in so prepared.
Yeah. He's one of my top 3. He's just an amazing guy. All right, we got a couple questions. If you have a question, put it in the chat, raise your hand. I'd rather you talk to Mike. He's not going to bite. Maybe he will. It won't be hard though. But no, please, let's talk. We got one submitted question from Sean because he couldn't be here. But Bill, I see you've been patiently waiting. What's up, man? How's retirement?
Oh, it's great. I can get up when I want to. I can stay up late. I still feel like I'm on an extended holiday,
right?
Because I don't really have a routine yet. But anyway.
I was going to ask you: is your natural routine? Did you move your bed? Like, did you move when you go to bed back, or are you like, no, that's pretty much when I was happy going to bed anyway, or like, did your natural sleep cycle?
To be honest, it hasn't changed a whole lot because I've never been a morning person, and so I would get up as late as possible to go to work because I found that I might as well stay in a little bit later, and that way I'm awake during the day versus getting that middle afternoon crash where you're just you're yawning. And so I said, heck, I might as well just come in a little bit later. I mean, and it's not that late, but I would get up around 7:30 to get to work by between 8:30 and 9, as opposed to a lot of the people I worked with. they were on their way or already into work at that time. I'm wondering, it's like, man, I'm still dreaming at that time.
Yeah, no.
But I threw my hand up right away because the topic you were talking about really, I thought was a great sort of segue to the question I've thought about asking Mike. I don't see him, but
I'm here.
there you are. How's it going? I was wondering, especially for someone like you said, you're there, you're recording, you're touring, and all that. What is a typical practice session when you're at home? A typical day. You're not. I don't mean when you're on the road, but what? Curious to how much of your practice, when you say, wife, I'm going to go down the basement, wherever I'm going to go practice, how much is dedicated to technique, and how much would be dedicated to I got songs to learn, or I got songs to remember, or what kind of, how do you split your practice up like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It all depends on what's coming up. And when I'm at home, I'm playing in a cover band with about a 200 song set list. So like I'm learning like Journey, separate ways, and Hot for Teacher, and trying to figure out the drum intro, and like so if I have a lot on my plate, I will dedicate pretty much the whole thing to charting and learning those songs. And once I chart something like 4-bar verse, fill into the chorus, pre-chorus, whatever, and I write it all out. I pretty much memorize that for the most part. But if I have an hour, and I will at least just sit down and warm up, I'll do just 16th note flow, and I'll play double bass just to get my legs involved. I'm not a double bass player. I can play a little. My son is taking guitar lessons, so I'm learning some Pantera and stuff. So more of that kind of stylized double bass, but not like blast beats and all that. But I'll do a little like warm up, and I'll play paradiddles with my feet in 16ths, and I'll play double paradiddles, singles, doubles. Try to speed it up, just get my body warm, and then usually I try to improvise. And I think it's my ADD. I don't know. I am going through New Breed. I will throw some New Breed in there, but I try to improvise, and then whatever I stumble upon, I'll make an exercise out of that. And it's really ADD. I wish I was more structured and could commit to 20 minutes on this, 20 minutes on single stroke roll speed, and 20, I'm more about application. If I can't do it in front of an audience, then I have to work at it. So like speaking of Tony Williams, like right now I'm not at a place where I'm going to do insane lightning single strokes around my toms, because that requires a lot of consistent practice to get your singles not only fast but powerful. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I like to be able to do it when it matters. Like in Braveheart, the guy throws the stone and he's like, yeah, but can you do it when it matters? So it's all utilitarian, practical stuff for me. So
that's I find, I sort of part-time, we're in a little cover band, and I guess it's more my mental struggle is learning the songs, because for a while I was just I'm not at that level, your level yet, but we spend a lot of time working technique and stuff, what I think at the detriment of trying to learn and memorize a song. Because I found when you do play in front of folks, this sounds kind of stupid, but if you know what you're going to be playing, it's a lot easier and more fun if you're like going in kind of nervous because you're not sure about this part or that part. So I've tried to focus a little bit more on just learning the stuff that we're going to be playing. If we have a half-hour set, 10 songs, try to focus on that. Say it's coming up, we're going to a party or something in a couple of weeks. Try to focus on learning, coming up with something to play for those songs. So I go in there confident that, hey, I know I'm going to play this. And I think it was one of our more recent Q&A sessions we had. We talked about that, and Stephen gave me some tips. And I wanted to say that's kind of my win for this week, is I've sort of taken that to heart, and listen to a song, play along to it, something that sounds good, fits the song, and then not worry about hitting every beat or every fill or every whatever.
Yeah.
This sounds good, and then take that and memorize that and learn that, and not worry so much about it being exactly what the drummer played on the record.
Well, unless you're playing like Yes and King Crimson or something, a lot of stuff we would play in a cover band are going to be in 4/4. They're going to be beats and grooves that we've heard and played our whole lives. And so like, there's probably going to be less than 5% of a song that's going to be challenging to most drummers. So you take that 5%, okay, it's that weird fill going into the guitar solo. You know what? Like, if this is another drummer thing, not everyone's listening to exactly what we're doing. It's real easy because everything we do is articulate and pointed, so you think there's a fill before the guitar solo in Final Countdown, and it is almost 120 on the metronome, and it's 30-second notes. It's and I remember like the last 4 months I've been working that fill up and just every day. But when we play the show, I would just do a funky fill. I just did not even try to do the fill. And then the first gig I tried doing it, I totally fumbled. And then I finally nailed it, I think the last gig. But you can substitute stuff, and that's what I'm saying. I'm always saying, like, utilitarian, make it work. Like, what would Charlie Watts do? He wouldn't go, Charlie Watts would go, meat and potatoes, do a Ringo fill when in doubt. And make Ringo fills part of your vernacular, because when in doubt, a Ringo fill is always going to sound good in any genre. Dude, you could do a Ringo fill in like Meshuggah. Thomas Hack could play a Ringo fill and it would be awesome, Big fan of Ringo.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. That helped.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I was going to piggyback off of what you were talking about practicing, because we actually have had quite a few questions over the last Q&As and some guest artists about practicing and what you practice. It's different because we do this for a living. So you have to, you got to get your work in. And, but kind of to your point, Mike, you talked about you jam on things for a while, you improvise, you find something with that. And, I took from Dave King, one lesson, maybe two lessons. I forget what it was. And he taught Steve Gould. So I've worked with Steve Gould a couple times. Fantastic. It was with Sarah Bareilles, and he actually came up under Dave King. And Dave told him when he started with him, he said, "Okay, Steve, we're going to learn all of these drum books. I need you to go buy all of these drum books." And they were all, syncopation, New Breed, like time functioning, Gary Chester, Shapey, all those. And he said, "We're going to learn them all. And then you're going to come in one day and we're going to have a book burning, and we're going to burn all of your books, and you're not going to work on any of the stupid books anymore. And we're going to try to see who you are as a player." And when I took from Dave, because I was saying, I'm going back through the New Breed, I'm going this, I'm doing that. And he said, "Dude, look, you can play the drums. You have a lot of knowledge in your head, but what is not happening is a lot of connectedness with the things that are in your head. You haven't connected how they come out and how you can put those together." He said, he said, "I don't want you touching any more books." I'm not saying this to you, by the way. I'm just saying this was a similar type of a thing, because I would feel bad about jamming in my practice time. And he said, yeah, and then he gave me a couple of exercises that were creativity exercises. And they had an anchor, what he called an anchor to them, that you could swim back to if you kind of got too far out. And then they had some real specific rules that were very simple, and you would work your way through it, and you didn't just spend like 5 minutes on it. The magic I found came, for about 10, 15 minutes, I would be thinking, this is stupid. This is the stupidest exercise I've ever done. Dave is, I didn't want to say Dave is stupid because that would have been blasphemy, but I was like, Dave doesn't know what he's talking about. And then after like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, all of a sudden I hit this pocket where it was like, oh, wait, no, I think he's a genius. because all of a sudden things started fitting together and you started finding the depth of what he was asking you to do, and things started kind of connecting. But it came from that time of giving yourself time to play, and time to, we grow up as kids and they give us Legos and they're like, hey, here, go play. And then you get older and they take your Legos and they're like, get serious now. And I kind of just would like my Legos back, so I could play a little bit.
What can I ask what the sort of the exercise was, or
yeah, sure. So he called them quarter notes. You could say they were eighth notes. But that was the anchor. That was the pier we were going to swim back to when we got in water that was too deep. And so, they were right around. You don't do anything with the left foot, just ignore it. And the only thing that mattered was that we played, sorry, there's something on my snare and my OCD is not going to let that get by. We had to play this as a constant. And he said, now take your left hand, on your left hand, and you're going to improvise. He called them eighth notes because, again, he's a jazz player and he was thinking fast quarter notes. You could think of this as eighth notes and this as 16th notes. And he said, so you're going to take your left hand and you're going to improvise different patterns and melodies only on the snare drum, making sure that the pocket, is always there and this never wavers. So you get something that sounds like this. Something like along those lines.
Yeah.
He said, okay, once you can do that, now tie the left hand behind your back, only the kick drum and the ride cymbal, and do the same thing. So you have, you get it going. And every time you kind of feel it falter a little bit, you go back to just the ride cymbal and give it a couple of measures of just doing that. Then you go to, and I'm talking like you would do it for 20 and 30 minutes, just the kick drum and that ride cymbal.
Wow.
So it gives you time to start latching on to, oh, that was a cool melody. Let me see if I can mix that with this. Because you don't really get it if you only do it like 10 minutes. You have to stay in it. Then he said, put them together and play them in unison, like a Mark Juliana type of a snare kick unison type thing. So
yeah.
All right, same type of deal, but that's the rule. The rule is you can only play them in unison, and this has to stay constant. Once you could do that, then the rule was any combination of kick, snare, unison. Now we can kind of start to improvise after we've isolated them. So you wind up somewhere like this. Which is really useful when you're anyway, but it was a simple exercise like that, the focus was creativity with 2 or 3 very easy rules to remember.
I'm gonna steal that, man.
You should. It's not mine.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing something with so there's no left foot in that, really.
No, because he wants you to isolate only 2 limbs. But I added the left foot later. So the left foot later became the quarters, and I started improvising with my ride cymbal too. So
it's interesting. Have you heard Felis de Kilimanjaro, the Miles Davis album? Miles Davis with Tony, Ron Carter, Wayne Shorter, the quintet,
the classic quintet,
and it's got these real trippy heads, and then the solo sections are all in this where the hi-hat and the ride are the hi-hats on the eighth notes and the ride they're playing together, and then he's just improvising between his snare and kick. But meanwhile, the hi-hat's just going.
Yeah, that was Tony's thing, man. Like everybody else did 2 and 4, and Tony's like, no, I'm going to do quarter notes. Yeah, and that it was really hard for me to separate these two because I do that. I was a huge Tony head. I studied him for a long time, and I wanted to do the. But
it sounds amazing. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets really cool whenever you say, okay, well, now the hi-hat is because all of a sudden everything falls apart because you've never just played the hi-hat while you just play the kick. Like it's kind of trippy. You got to think through it.
Yeah.
But
what's funny is that's been such a part of my playing, that hi-hat thing, that I it's kind of like a crutch, and it's also like something I do in almost every Rival Son song. And I'm just playing eighth notes because we're the rock mid-tempo, so it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like our song Pressure in Time. It's like there's so much compression on the drums. I'm barely playing the bell of the ride cymbal because I love Alex Van Halen. I basically I try to do everything he did, and it was never conscious. We just heard a thing last night. We had a Van Halen moment on the bus for about an hour and a half, listening to just awesome Van Halen. I mean, Alex is probably one of the most underappreciated drummers in rock, dude. Like, you're just listening to not only the way he plays and his creativity, his groove, that behind the beat thing with that tang, tang, that crazy snare drum sound. He's playing with the greatest guitar player who ever lived, and the way they play together, it's the most unique music out there. Every time I listen to Van Halen, I'm reminded of how unique that is, you know. But the bell of the ride cymbal in Pressure in Time, I reinforced it with that hi-hat, and now live I put a tambourine thing, whatever you call those things, on the hi-hat, and now it's just like my whole groove sounds like a trash truck coming down the street.
Well, we got a couple more questions, but anyway, you reminded me of that because for years I felt bad for spending my practice time creating, and like spending it in that realm. And I've taken from a couple of guys that I really respect now, and they've kind of reinforced in me. They're like, no, that needs to be most of your practice time right now. Like, who cares how fast you can play it if you can't play it when it matters? Kind of like you were saying. So. Anyway, that was a big guilt thing for me. It's just, all right, let's see. If you got a question, raise your hand. We got Pat. We got your question, and then I got a submitted question from Sean, and then I'm sure somebody else will want to talk. What's up, Pat? How's the weather in Mississippi?
Today it's very nice, very warm, very spring-like.
Nice. It's spring-like here too, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. It's in the 70s right now, so that's pretty nice. I guess I'll get to a question, but I have to give some background before I can get to the question, because it's advice, I guess. Under the normal calls we'd have, this would be a win. I actually got a call yesterday, and have been invited to play a gig that actually I get paid for.
Yes.
Yes. The problem is,
nice.
I'm as nervous as can be, because these are professionals, and the way I'd categorize myself is maybe an advanced beginner. I live in a small town. There's not that many drummers, you know, and I happen to have a drum set, so I got a call. So I'm extremely nervous. I don't know any of these people. It's a really different venue that I've never done before. It's not a dance or anything like that. It's a play. So there's going to be music and then there's non-music. So I really don't know.
Okay, so let me clarify. It's a stage show?
Yeah, it's a play at a high school.
Okay. Yep.
What I know so far. And I don't know the people. I've never met them before in my life. The name of the group is Journey, not to be confused, I think, with the Journey. At least I hope it isn't. So
do they have show? I'm going to start asking some questions now. Do they have show books for you with the music?
Yet. I got a text with 3 songs that kind of gives you an idea how what the theme of the play might be. The 3 songs that I have right now are Dancing Queen, Mamma Mia, SOS. And from what I understand, there's more songs to come because this is just the first shot at it. I have a rehearsal tonight, so I'm going to have to go here shortly and start getting things ready to go, and get the drums broken down and get to where they're going to do the rehearsal. So, I guess is the advice that I'm asking for is how should I approach this going in there? Like I say, I'm at best an advanced beginner, and I'm extremely nervous about playing with these professionals. And the last thing I want is for them to say, "Boy, the band was great, but the drummer really sucked." So anyway,
Right.
That's where I'm at. I need to calm down, otherwise this is not gonna go well. So it's been since COVID ended. It's been that long since I've actually played with a band. I mean, I've been playing. Of course, I'm a student, so I've been playing at home, earphones and stuff. But so. What do I do?
All right, so I'm going to let Mike answer this question, but let me preface it with
I love it.
You've heard 2 things now, Mike, from 2 people talking about their wins. So on the weekly calls, I'm real big about everybody celebrating your win for the day, even if it's just I showed up, because it's the small habits that we build every day and those small wins that get us to bigger wins. So if you hear people referring to that, I'm big on what's your win for the day? What was it? We got to have one every day. And then the second thing, Pat, before I let him answer, stop referring to yourself as an advanced beginner. You're a drummer now, and you've got a gig coming up, because that's just going to hold you back mentally. Mainly, it's mental stuff going through your head right now. So, but they called you. You didn't call them. They called you. So they're asking that you show up and do a job, and you're more than capable to do that job. But just kind of get the mental stuff out of the way, and don't talk yourself down before you have a chance to actually do the gig. Mike, I'm gonna let you go with it, man.
The win for the day is that you took the gig and that you're stepping up. And so in anything, like I was preparing for a senior recital in college. That's a venue that I am not commanding. Like when I get on the drums, I can play all night, 6 sets in a blues band and not know 60% of the material and pull it off. But playing a marimba solo, 4 mallets, timpani. I played Chopin on the 4 mallet vibes. I was nervous as hell, man. But it was still, the point is, I saw a sports psychologist who was my marimba teacher, but he also wrote with sports psychology. He wrote a book about music performance with a sports psychologist. Anyway, so he was real mental. Just like Steve said, you got to get rid of that negative self-talk. They called you. You're a decent drummer, I imagine. Dancing Queen is pretty basic. The other song, Mamma Mia, basic. Learn the songs, learn the notes, get familiar with it. But it's these little wins. These are the wins. I love that you have this analogy, Steve, that what's the win for the day? You might fumble. You might fumble on Dancing Queen, on the entrance. You might go 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you know who else did that? Charlie Watts. And they left it on the record on Start Me Up, dude. So, do it with a smile on your face. Make friends. Don't make any enemies. Don't burn any bridges. Show up with a smile on your face. Be accommodating. If they want you to set the kit over here, you thought the kit should go here. Don't be that guy that's like, oh, I can only play. If they want to turn you sideways, turn sideways, man. Being malleable, being a team player, all these things will they will add to your wins. And it's none of this is playing. This is all like walking up, shaking their hand, saying, "How's everybody doing today?" Like, these are all things that I've done in my career, and you get other wins. So you talk to the lead singer in catering, and now you guys are best buds. Like, all these little things, make friends with the bass player. Now all of a sudden he has a blues gig. Now you're playing blues gigs on Saturday nights, and because the bass player likes you. And not everybody's looking for Dennis Chambers and Tony Williams to be their drummer. Like, people want a Charlie Watts for the most part. And I'm not downgrading Charlie in any way, shape, or form, because he's a great jazz drummer. But you know what I'm saying? All that Rolling Stone stuff is just meat and potatoes, right? So I don't know if you want to expound or riff off anything I said, Steve, but
yeah. I to quote the singer with the group that I'm playing, I'm with the Steelwoods right now, and to quote him, he said, "With our music, 30-second notes is never the answer." You know,
Yeah.
that's just kind of like as something to keep in my brain. But yeah, the thing, and this is what I try to stress. I talked to a drummer from, I think she was either from China or Japan, and she's taken lessons from me from quite a few years. Very good drummer. Plays out professional level. She got an audition for a touring performance, and the audition just didn't go well. It didn't go well at all. And the things that didn't go well had nothing to do with her drumming. But what happened was, it was a domino effect. She got there, they were already behind schedule, so everybody was rushing her. She got up there, all of a sudden, the drums are tuned weird for her. So now she's trying to do that. The cymbal's out of my reach. I got to get the snare drum. Like, she was so enamored with all of this stuff, she never thought, oh no, I have to get my mix too, because I can't hear anything. So by the time she got to being able to do her mix, which was only about 5 minutes, and they were hurrying her the whole time, she didn't have time to get her mix done. The audition she wasn't gonna win it, because she lost it before it ever started. And it had nothing to do with her drumming, because she could play all of that stuff. She said, "I played horribly." And I said, "Yeah, but actually you can play that stuff." The thing that happened was, so we actually reverse engineered, and I was like, you have to have a plan. So the biggest thing you could do, Pat, is when you show up, have a plan. How am I going to set my drum set up? Once I get my drum set up, is there a sound check? If there is, what's the most important instrument in my mix? How am I going to work through that? Like, I have an A, B, C, D type of a thing, so that whenever I go in and set things up, I'll be setting up tomorrow for a show in a venue I've never been in. I will be checking my checklist, and until I get that stuff done, then, okay, sound check. And I mean, I check the boxes, so that the playing is the thing I really don't have to think too much about. And I can just, when I get to it, I can only focus on that, because I have all these checklists that I've just kind of gone through in my head. Yep, done it. So I think the biggest thing for you will be I think you're more than a competent player for this. I think that's why they called. So you just show up and make sure you have, I call them the externals, all the externals of the gig.
Yeah.
You have those kind of like nailed down. And then, you know, the internals, which is how you're feeling about it, the drumming, all that stuff, you can have time to focus on that. But all that stuff Mike mentioned had nothing to do with music. It had everything to do with the mental side and showing up and being a good person and being attentive. They care about that way more than they care about how great a player you are.
Yeah. I was just going to add to that. You're going to fail. You are going to trip up. Something's going to happen. You're going to screw a fill up. You're going to screw a count in. And it's not whether you're perfect or whatever. It's like how you deal with the mistake. And that mental psychologist, sports psychologist guy I was talking about, he just said, do the bathtub test of perfection before you go out on stage. Fill the bathtub up with about 3 inches of water, and then step into the bathtub. And if your foot hits porcelain, you know you're not perfect. And it just kind of humbles you. It makes you laugh, and you're not going to be perfect. I guarantee you, you're going to score a 94, 95% on that gig. And you're going to come back to us next month, on whoever's the call on the next one. And you're going to be like, I did it. I went there and it was actually pretty good. It went okay, you know? So
yeah. And another thing I'll latch onto that too is I heard somebody say this not long ago, and I've used it ever since. Because we actually perform a little bit better when we call them nerves. When there's nerves involved, your senses are honed a little bit. And that's kind of a natural, lizard brain type of a thing. But I often confuse being excited with being nervous about something, because the two feelings are almost identical. The next time you feel nervous about something, recognize how excitement feels too. So a lot of times I'll go, you know what? I'm actually not nervous about this. I'm actually excited about it. And I'm excited to get to do it. And that's causing me to have the jitters because I'm excited. Instead of it being like a negative thing, I'm nervous. We turn it into this positive thing of, I'm actually pretty excited, which is usually true. They just feel so close to me anyway. So
gratitude as well. Like thanking whoever you thank, wow, for the opportunity to do this. This is so cool. I'm still playing drums. I'm getting the call. Yeah, I might be the only drummer in the city, but then damn right I should get the call. And thank you for the call. There's this little bit of confidence too that comes into performing and playing drums. I think any instrument is, it's kind of, you could say fake it till you make it or whatever. I feel like I'm still faking it until I make it. Like, just, and it's not like posturing it's like not being fake, but just that you have to have some kind of swagger, and you have to find that swagger. And I think that's for everybody to find it, instead of walking in and going, hi, I'm Mike. I'm going to hopefully I'll do okay. Like everyone's going to be like, who'd you call, dude? You got to be like, hey man, how's it going? Nice to meet you guys. Hopefully we'll get to the gig. Ha ha ha, boom. Hit him in the shoulder now. Hopefully we'll get through this now. Comedy, humor, these kinds of things, personality, preparation. The reverse engineering thing is my new thing in life, dude. So glad you mentioned that, Steve. The reverse engineer your gig. Drive to the gig. See yourself driving, pulling up. Is it in the back? Try to picture the back. Are you going to unload the drums out the back of your truck or car? You know what? Somebody's probably going to go out there and help you. And now you have your first conversation, So, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I'm
excited to hear about it next week. I want to hear about how it goes, Pat.
I sure will. Yeah. I hope it goes well.
No hope about it. It's going to go great.
Hey, Steve.
One thing for sure, it's going to go.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a story. It's kind of has to do with showing up to something, but getting a gig. You mentioned that audition, I'm seeing comments now. Oh, cool. So I auditioned for One Republic a long time ago, right before Too Late to Apologize. It was before they released that album, and it came down to me and the drummer they have now, and trying to think of the lead singer's name right now. Dave, I think. Anyway, I'm brain farting. Sorry guys. But lead singer, Ryan Tedder, lead singer, calls me up and he goes, Miley, like I did like 4 callbacks. And there's Chase Picaro, Jeff Picaro's nephew, Adam or Aaron, the guy that got the gig, and then me. And then it came down to me and Adam or Aaron. So he calls me. He's like, I wanted to call you personally. You did such a good job. We loved you. Everyone in the band loves you. Like I got along with, we were broing down, hanging out, having beers after the auditions and stuff. Like, and he goes, but I'm just going to shoot you straight. You're basically a BMW, AMG, Mercedes. We need a Honda Accord. And Aaron's a Honda Accord. And it was like the best compliment to not get the gig because I was actually too good or whatever, and they just wanted somebody basic, somebody who wasn't going to stand out, and it's just a lesson for like everybody. You could be the best drummer on planet Earth, man, and you might not get the gig. So
yeah, I am. And I don't know if I've ever told this story in here. When I was in New Orleans, Paul Meany, who's the lead singer for Mute Math, at that time he was in a group called Earthsuit, and they were kind of transitioning. This was before Darren. Well, Darren had moved to town, and him and Paul were hanging. But so I auditioned for Earthsuit and what would become Mute Math later, which is one of my favorite bands. I love Mute Math. I love the guys in it. I think they're fantastic. And Paul had come to see me play live on where I had my gig on Bourbon Street, and he came to me right after. He's like, "Dude, you got to come over and jam. I think we can work on a project together." And I was stoked. Went over to his place 2 or 3 times, and it just didn't go well. Like, it didn't go well. Both of us liked the other's playing, but it was just, and neither of us could put our finger on it. We didn't know what it was. And for years, I carried that with me of like really bummed out that I missed that opportunity. And then later, I realized, wait, I wouldn't like the band as much if I was in it. Like, I would take away one of my favorite bands. And I love, like, I got to see Darren from really inception all the way to just the monster he is now. And I'm like, oh, I didn't want to be in that band. I thought I did, but that's not what I wanted, you know? And anyway, you'll screw up. You know?
Yeah.
But it's all about recovery.
Yeah, it is the recovery, because I screwed up in front of 12,000 people last night. So it happens. And then somebody will come up to you in the audience or in the foyer or something and be like, that was like the best time I've seen you guys 3 times. That was the best time I've ever seen you guys. And I'm like, didn't you hear me miss the entrance into the song, which is our video, a single right now? It's like the most dumb blockhead fill, the intro fill to the song. But I do, you know, I even screwed it up right there when I sang it back. So it's like, sometimes
that's amazing. I always say it's not that, you know, professional players don't mess up. It's how they resolve it. You know, it's always the recovery, which I guess there's some life lesson there too that we could probably, you know, ruminate on. But I had a professor and he told me I hit a note and I'm like, sorry, that was a wrong note. And he said, there are no wrong notes. I said, no, there's most definitely a wrong note. We're in G, and that definitely was nowhere near the key. And he said, no, there's only wrong resolutions. The note was wrong because you stopped there. And I was like, what? And he said, watch, I'll play that note and it'll be fine. And he played it and then he resolved it correctly. He slid out of it. And he said, there's no wrong notes. There's only wrong resolutions, you know? And I was like, hold on, can we stop the lesson so I can go think the rest of the day about that? Because I think there's something big here. I need to, you know, my 20-year-old self needs to catch. Yeah. So anyway, all about the resolution. All right, we got a question. If you got a question, please raise your hand. Pat, was that all you had? I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, that's I appreciate it. I appreciate all the encouragement that I got, excuse me, through the chat. I'm going to have to leave. I got to start tearing things down and getting ready to move everything.
Do it, man.
To the rehearsal. So
hey, Pat, don't forget your drum key. Bring the
yeah, I put them in my pockets everywhere.
Nice.
I'm notorious for forgetting my drum key. Like, I have like 50 drum keys around my house, my studio, my cymbal bags, and somehow they just never make it to the gigs. I don't understand.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Have fun, Pat. We'll see you. I've got them to where I keep them everywhere, and I'll go, why do I have a drum key here? And I'm like, oh yeah, just keep it there. Someday I'm going to need it. And sure enough, it'll be like, our tour manager's like, why do you have a key in your in-ear, you know, case? And I'm like, why wouldn't I have a drum key in there? That's the question. All right, we got a question from Sean, and then if you've got a question, please, by all means, raise that hand up. Sean asked this question to every guest artist we have. I think it's a great question, but he couldn't be here. He's over in Europe, I think he is. Great Britain? I forget where he is. Sorry, I can't make it today, guys, but I'll ask the question I always do of any guest, and that is, are there any exercises or techniques you learned at the beginning of your drumming journey that you still use to this day or go back to?
Oh my gosh. Beginning of my drumming journey. God, I'm thinking of my first drum lesson. I learned kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, boot, scat, boot, scat. And then I learned, then he doubled that. do 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 do. I've never seen anybody teach this, but I don't even remember my drum teacher's name, my first drum teacher. But little did I know I was learning linear drumming, and linear drumming is like where it's at right now. And most of the stuff I do practice when I'm talking about improvising and flowing and stuff, I'm doing linear patterns, which end up being an amalgamation of singles, doubles, and paradiddle stickings that are random and off the cuff. And, you're flowing. Flowing is like, that's why we put all those hours into doing our rudiments around the kit. And didn't you do a video, Steve, about rudiments on the kit?
Oh yeah, I've done it.
Trying to remember. Yeah. Okay. I've come across some of those. I'm like YouTube University, so I follow a bunch of drum pages. So
there's such a wealth of knowledge out there, and I tell newer drummers, it's not, the internet's a great place to get knowledge. It's not a great place to have organized knowledge. So you need to go to a teacher at that point. But like for somebody that is later in their career, being able to go through and cherry pick, like, oh, that's a cool thing, let me check that out. It's just incredible.
You could go, just for a fun experiment, right now you could go play Fool in the Rain by John Bonham, Led Zeppelin. And there's like 47 people teaching you how to play. I'll click on like 10 of them and go, I want to see if this guy got that hi-hat thing and the right ghost note, combination and all that stuff. And you'll see a 15-year-old kid doing it wrong, but I'm like, I kind of like that thing he did on the kick drum. I'm going to steal that. So there's so much good stuff on the internet that you can grab. And then, like you said, it's, be careful, because you could go down some rabbit holes that might be detrimental to your playing.
Nina, what's up? You'll have to unmute yourself. Zoom does not allow me to have the power to unmute people. I can only mute you. I can silence you, but I can't give you freedom of speech.
I kept pressing the wrong buttons.
That's really the story of my career. We could title the book. I kept pressing the wrong buttons. I'm sorry.
Well, thanks for hosting this. I've been taking lessons for about a month now, I guess, and it's really helped my playing already. I've been playing since the 90s, but it's only in the last 6 months that I've started to play out in bars and different venues. I just had my first show in front of 500 people last Sunday.
How'd that go?
So it was really good, actually.
Yeah.
I rocked it.
What type of music? What type of show was it?
It was a benefit concert at this place in Baltimore, Maryland, where I'm from. It's like this old school rock and roll place called the Retcher. So it was pretty cool. So I felt pretty awesome to be doing that. My question is again about confidence building. There's so many amazing musicians here in Baltimore, and I feel like I'm even though I've been playing for a long time, I'm way less experienced playing out. And kind of like Pat was saying too, I have some of the same issues with confidence and showing up to one of these big gigs and feeling like, oh man, everyone's so much better than me. And, how do you get past all of that? Is that something that, just goes away? And excuse my dogs in the background, they're getting crazy. But how do you kind of get over some of these confidence issues? And this show, I didn't let it get to me. I still played really awesome, but there have been some other shows where, something will happen and then suddenly I'm just like, oh man, I suck and all of this.
Mike, you're up.
Yeah. Hi, and thank you for calling in. Confidence is, I think, going to be on every single artist you've ever known and loved, from Vincent Van Gogh to Duke Ellington to, every musician struggles with this. So I'm not downplaying it. That's why I was saying earlier, fake it till you make it, being friendly, the reverse engineering, showing up early so that you're, as Steve says, the externals, got your drums, got your kick pedal. hardware, sticks, cymbals, and I'm speaking kind of in jest, but it's true. Like I've shown up to gigs and forgot my freaking kick drum pedal or my stool, and you're like, I guess I'm doing the gig on a bar stool today, or a restaurant chair. So I mean, cover your bases, but only experience can give you experience. So you gotta just nose to the grind and just keep doing it and be humble. And like I was saying, like don't be being confrontational is going to take you 15 steps back after you get like 5 steps forward. So that's why I'm always saying make friends. I'm in Rival Sons because of an old bass player I played with, and so it just goes to show you people you meet. And an old bass player friend of mine is now the bass player for Ben Harper, and his name's Darwin Johnson. He's always the nicest guy. Made friends with everybody. He hung out. He helped people with their gear, and now he's the bass player for Ben Harper, man. And he's killing it. And so these little things you're putting in, you're like Steve was talking about the Legos. Like we're all putting Legos on our own little rocket ship or something, So you just got to nose to the grind it and be cool, be nice, be friendly. I'm always a fan of that, and that's not being fake. Like when you go to the grocery store, you're nice to the checkout person. Hey, how's it going? And that's how I am in life. I try to just be jovial, good, positive energy, because that's going to be more attractive than like a total jerk who can play linear shit around the drums and then knock the drums over and walk off stage and spill your beer. I have an experience like this, sharing my drums with somebody I won't mention, who's very.
Oh wait, I'm not supposed to steal everybody's drinks during the gig.
Yeah, rule number 1: don't drink the singer's drink.
Yeah. So I guess I've dealt with more head stuff than I don't know. I think more than normal people. So I actually have some techniques that I'll do around the gig if I'm feeling that way. One of my old drum teachers, he stopped me. This was only a few years ago. I was kind of at a point where I was like, I didn't know which direction I wanted to go to with several things in my playing in my career, and he said, you're never gonna be the best. He said, you'll never be the fastest. There's always going to be somebody that can practice more. He said, you got a family. You don't have time for that. He said, and if you do, you're always going to be in the studio. He said, I know these guys. They fly in from a gig. They say hi to their family, and then they go to their studio and they practice for 3 and 4 hours because they had this level of playing that they expect themselves to always hit. And that's their bag. They want to be that person, the best, the fastest, whatever that is. And I'll exclude names. And he said, the magic isn't in that. He said, the magic is the intersection of you're a drummer, right? You're a drummer. It's the intersection of that and what else? What's the other thing that makes you unique? It's not that you're a drummer. That's not unique. There's lots of drummers. It's not that you're a musician. There's lots of musicians. What's the and that you add to that makes and then it helps you not just focus on that. You're now kind of a package. It's like, oh no, this is the unique thing I bring to this. And it gets you out of that bloody water, the red water that everybody's feasting in of who can be the best and comparison, all that stuff. And competition is for horses. So I forget who said that, and this is music. And so it puts you into this thing of like, no, I'm this creative being and this is what I bring to the gig. And that helped me a lot to be confident about what I'm doing and really define, like, what do I bring to the gig? Like, there's things, they call me for a reason. As well, before the gig, I try to go in over prepared. That helps me with the mental side of things. And then even on the bus tomorrow night, before the show, people are like, what are y'all doing? You party? I'm like, no, it's actually pretty boring. Everybody usually takes a nap before the show. Our guitar player does this like breathing exercise. You can hear him in his bunk, and it's like this whole Wim Hof. It's the mental.
I do
thing.
Wim Hof. I do
you?
Before the show. Yeah.
It's the mental thing. Everybody takes about an hour and rests, and they get themselves mentally in a place where They can kind of go in without all that baggage to hold them down. And then when I do make mistakes, which is every time I get on the stage, I allow myself to be upset about them for only a certain amount of time. There's a time limit that I allow myself. And then after that, I tell myself I'm being dramatic and I need to get over it. You know, I kind of allow myself to wallow in self-pity and eat Twinkies and Snicker bars for like this amount of time. And then you're not allowed to do it anymore. Like, put it behind you, figure out a strategy for how you're going to fix that. That's helped me a lot, is to kind of give myself that, okay, I'm human, I screwed up, you know, beat myself up, but all right, we're done with that. It's the next day, sun came up, let's go get some coffee and move on with it, you know? Because people are calling you, Nina. So it's obvious that you are that you're more than capable player, which is very cool, especially for where you are. Like you said, there's a ton of players up there.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. That's a good question. People, it's the head game. We deal with the head stuff so much more than the actual physical stuff, you know?
Yeah, that's actually what prevented me from doing all this for a long time, like really committing to, you know, drumming and practice and playing out a lot. Like, I live in this neighborhood of Baltimore, Fells Point, where there's just a lot of cool music going on. And I've been asked for years to like sit in with different things when people heard that I was drummers. And I kept saying, oh yeah, like soon, sometime in the future, I'll do that when I have time. But really it was I was like, oh, I'm not good enough to do that. And then this fall, I basically was like, this is dumb. Like, I'm never going to do anything by sitting at home being afraid. So let's go try this out. And wrestling with my confidence, I think, and that fear of failure has been the biggest hurdle, which is silly because it's like my own self that's getting in the way. But
yeah, I'm my own worst, you know, Lit that wrote the song, My Own Worst Enemy. It's like, you know, and Tim Ferriss, I think it is, has an exercise that he does. It's called worst case scenario. So what you do is, instead of imagining the best case scenario for like, I got a gig tonight, what's the best thing that could happen? You imagine, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the absolute worst thing? Okay, so I could get on stage, I could all of a sudden get nauseous, I could puke all over the drums, so that not only I couldn't play them, but no one else could play them because I just, you know, defecated my puke all over them. Like, you know, you really amp it up. And then you go, okay, so what would happen after that? Would life still go on? Like, you know, what's the worst case scenario? And you kind of work yourself backwards from like, yeah, actually it'd be fine. I could clean them and we deal with it. It wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, maybe they fire me because I got sick, but then they're jerks. You know, it's like you walk yourself through this thing of like, oh, well, as long as that doesn't happen, I think I'm okay. Because that's the worst that could happen. And like you said, you've said no for years, and now you're saying yes, and all these awesome opportunities are coming up. That's awesome.
That's a great that Tim Ferriss thing, and then couple that with the reverse engineering thing. The reverse engineering life hack is like a lot of the kind of Tim Ferriss's and these kind of guys that are motivational people are talking about reverse engineering and like reverse engineer your career. I want to be playing 3 nights a week. I want to be playing in a band. I don't want to be a side guy. I want to be in a band and like own the music. Reverse engineering that. You know, I want to be able to take vacations with my spouse. Like reverse engineer that. Like how do we get to a point where we could leave the kids at home and, you know, these kinds of things, you know, and I'm speaking obviously somebody who has 3 kids now. So,
I'm in the same boat. So
I'm like, how do I make, you know, because when I get off the road, the last thing I want to do is go on a vacation, you know? And so and travel, go through airport security and, you know, checking in bags and all that. I'm like, when I get home, I just want to be in my living room on my living room floor playing, you know, with my, you know, kids and stuff. And so anyway, reverse engineering is one of the best, coolest things. Worst case scenario is great. This is good. I got to use that.
You mentioned kids. So we were having a conversation, Kelly and I, because we've got a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And we're at the point now, we don't have any babysitters. We have to find a good babysitter. Any parents know you go through cycles. And she was saying, she said, what we need to do is just find a really responsible, good 17-year-old girl that could come babysit, help take care of Brooklyn, do that. And I said, yeah. And then let's leave her at home alone with our 15-year-old son, and let's let them have the run of the house. I think that's a great idea. If we realized we had graduated to another level of babysitter, like, oh, we can't have teenagers now because we have a teenager. So we gotta figure out how not to have a girl in the house with him in the house alone. Anyway, it was kind of a fun conversation. So
that's funny.
all right. Do we have any other questions? Let's see here. Steven said Jackson would be the best babysitter. He actually would be the best babysitter. We're still, with our youngest, we're still figuring out some of the paperwork. Any of you parents know what that is with the whole bathroom deal and paperwork. So once that's figured out, I actually do think Jackson will be fantastic. He's a good dude. All right, so I think that's before we get out of here. We'll take as long as we need, everybody. But if the questions are kind of at an end and it's naturally kind of coming to a close. All right, so before we wrap it up, Mike, who's the companies that you support, shall we say, that are helping you do what you do?
Yeah, I made the switch to Pearl drums a couple of years ago.
Why? Can I ask a nerd question? Very selfish.
Well, we were in the studio making our current album that is coming out in June is called Dark Fighter. It turned out because of COVID that we wrote 2 albums. So we have 2 albums coming out this year. One is called Dark Fighter and one's called Lightbringer. One comes out in June, one comes out in October. And so during the making of this album, this collection of songs, Pearl was distributing Vincent drumsticks. So I have a signature stick with Vincent, and it's like a 5A XL. And so they wanted me to come in and do some promo for the sticks. So we went out to lunch, and long story short, went on a few lunches, and they really tried to get me to come because they were releasing the presidential reissue of their 1966 first drum set that Pearl did. And they wanted me to be an ambassador for that. I've never been asked to do that as drummers, like we're like, you're just trying to get the free stuff or the 30% off from, whatever company you're endorsing. And so it was like, so I made the switch to Pearl. They're one of the best drum companies. It's not the biggest, on planet Earth. Top to bottom, I think it's run great people. The second I walked in the building, it was a family vibe. The CEO is the guy who took the picture of Jeff Porcaro, the famous Jeff Porcaro picture. I'm all about Jeff Porcaro. Jeff Porcaro, Hold the Line was what gravitated my ear. Hold the Line by Toto, and then Phil Collins song. In the Air Tonight was what sealed the deal for me to be a drummer. But and so I made the switch to Pearl. Big legacy. I've been playing Paiste cymbals for almost 20 years. Vincent drumsticks. So Pearl is hardware, percussion, and drums. So I'm playing the presidential kit now. They make it I play 26, 14, 16, 18, just the bottom sizes with a 6.5 by 14 aluminum or 6.5 by 14. It's called the Black Brass. It's Pearl's Sensitone version of the Black Beauty. Classic Ludwig Black Beauty that we all know and love. And then Paiste Big Beats 2002s. I have my own prototype ride cymbal right now that we're trying out. It's kind of like Sabian Omni. So it's got a nice bell, a good ping, and then a crashy, washy crash ride. So it's from the bell to the edge, it's tapered. And
yeah. That's kind of what Zildjian did with their sweet, like the sweet ride, that you can crash on them, but then they get out of the way real quick and don't. I've got some crash rides that, like, once they wash, they're just there and you can't get them to back off. Yeah.
So I'm also live. I'm doing the Porter and Davies thumper, and so to buzzing your butt and makes you feel the kick drum because we're all in in-ear monitors now. And so that's the thumper technology is really cool because when you hit, for those of you who don't know, you hit the bass drum, the frequencies of the bass drum go through an amp that is connected to your actual drum seat, and it goes brrr. So brrr, so the seat will vibrate when you hit the kick drum.
I was just talking to my sound guy about using one of those with the Steel Woods, because that's my biggest thing with in-ears is just losing the low end. You lose the, a wedge gives you that shake, and losing that really sucks.
I can't stand it. I'm almost to the point where I want to just go back to wedges, just the open air wedge speaker. We call them wedges in the business, boxes.
Yeah, we did that whole festival in Colorado was throw and go, so everything was wedges. And our sound guy came up, he's like, y'all sound way tighter with wedges. I was like, well, don't, that's awful. So now our singer's been obsessing about that,
Yeah.
But I came up on wedges, man. I like them.
Yeah. You got to feel the room, got to feel the drums in the room. Your in-ears are basically all the close mic sounds, and there's got to be, somebody's got to invent a compression plugin. Every time I ask for compression or something to like warm up the drums, there's like, oh well, this doesn't have the technology to do that. And I'm like, a freaking $30,000 monitor rig. Like, why can't I have like put a LA2A compressor on my overheads or something? I don't know. Like
the theater we were just in Lexington, which is it's the Palace Theater, I think it is, in no, is it Lexington? Louisville. The Louisville Palace Theater is gorgeous theater. It ate up bottom end, man. I mean, it just ate it. There's some monster out there that's just eating all the low end, and you've just lost everything. So that's whenever we started the conversation about using a butt thumper or butt kicker.
Yeah.
So I may wind up.
We have a sound guy who he dials in every room we play, even if we're like an opening act. He'll take that 5 to 10 minutes and go through the EQ, all those little knobs on the EQ, and he's like, and he's like annoying everybody, but he's finding that frequency that is terrible, and he's like boosting it or subtractive EQing it out of the spectrum, and then when the band comes up, everything sounds even and glossed. So we're very fortunate to have a really great sound guy. It's all these aspects of the business and performance and are so, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on touring and like successful live performance and all this stuff. I'm a nerd, like I said at the beginning. I'm a nerd for all this stuff. Talk for hours. So there's no more questions, huh?
Yeah, we don't have any right now. So we can kind of wrap it up. And I know you got to play tonight. Wait, John is hatching. Where can I buy your sticks?
I guess you would have to buy them in Europe. It's probably not worth it. Just go get a 5AXL from any of your favorite companies. I wish Vincent was being distributed by Pearl, and we're going to have U.S. distribution. I think it's coming up. I got to talk to Dan, the CEO. It's a Swedish company, and they're great. Mickey D turned me on to them from Mickey D was with Motorhead and played with a bunch of people, but Mickey D has like a bunch of shares in the company, and I remember getting a pair, and they have a patented wax, and they really last a long time. I go through one pair of sticks, or I always give my sticks away at the end of the show, at the end of our set, but I can
You do that too? Okay, I'm not the only one. And I'm a sucker if there's like a little kid down front. I'm not even gonna have sticks left.
Always. My drum tech's like, he's like, there's only 6 pairs of sticks and we have 5 shows. So please,
Please stop giving away. And then that show, you go give them away and you give 2 pairs away. You're like, oh, sorry.
I know. Yep, exactly. That's, so yeah, you can't get them in the States yet. I wish if you travel to Europe, you can get them, and they're like 25 euros a pair. It's like so expensive.
Oh, John put an eBay link in there. Hold up. eBay to the rescue. Cool. Winston Drumsticks, 1844.
Or come to a Rival Sons show and stand in the front row.
and yell, please give me the drumsticks.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. If
Well,
you
cool,
have
man.
children, bring your kids up to the front row, and you will definitely get a stick.
John says, see you in Spokane then.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, we'll get out of here, man, and let you get about your day. If any of you are in Nebraska or Iowa over the weekends, I'll be there playing, so you can check out steelwoods.com, come out to the show and say hey. As well, check out Rival Sons touring schedule and find where they're gonna be, and go say hey, because we are actually real people and we don't mind saying hey and what's up. So
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much, man.
Just for like plug for me, like I basically do everything on Instagram, and it's Miley on drums with a Z. So MILEYONDRUMZ, or Facebook.com/Michael Miley, Rival Sons, one word. I don't know, but just go to, I do everything on Instagram. So if you wanted to connect with me, you could DM me there or whatever. I still teach a little bit when I'm at home and stuff. And most of I'm not going through curriculum. Most of my students are, it's kind of like a Zoom call where it's just, they're interviewing me and asking for advice and stuff like that. And I love doing it. If I'm at home and I'm free, I do that as well. So
very cool. So look him up, check him out, and we will see everybody on the calls next week. Check the call schedule. Grant will be back in the saddle, I'm sure. And Mike, man, hang on the call if you could. And
okay.
And we'll chat just a second. So we'll see everybody next week.